Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, whilst Mr Farage was making headlines in the US, as we mentioned earlier, the 5 UKIP politicians standing for his job were holding their final hustings tonight. It is probably fair to say his are quite big shoes to fill. Leather brogues, usually, if you're interested. Those hoping to replace him are not yet household names, of course, but it's also fair to say there are a few colourful characters among them. Philip Broughton, for instance, a former Tory councillor who, outside politics, is an amateur wrestler. Yes, he is. Bill Etheridge, an MEP who has described the party as being too safe in the past and has suggested prisoners should be charged $40,000 a year for their upkeep. Lisa Duffy, a councillor who was virtually unknown before several senior party members backed her and who's promised to ban the veil in public places. Elizabeth Jones, who says she wants to unify the party but is perhaps most famous for losing her temper during a radio interview. And last but not least, Diane James, the favourite in many eyes, who has point-blank refused to attend a single hustings. But then, what kind of leader does UKIP need now that Brexit is in the process of being achieved?
On the Doncaster fruit and veg stands, they pride themselves on a bargain.
Local gold strawberry now £2 for a pound.
But for a long time, the political market here was far less competitive. Labour dominated until UKIP set up stall.
Have one of them, please.
Yep, no problem.
Doncaster is now one of its biggest branches. There are members all over this market selling the party.
Thank you. Cheers. Labour's ignored your working class for years. They've taken them for granted. The Tories tend to trample all over them, and I think the UKIP could replace them and support them.
UKIP members here did secure one of the biggest Brexit votes in the country, but that does beg the question of whether the party's job is done.
You've won your referendum. What is the purpose of UKIP now?
But the purpose of UKIP is to go forward now.
What does that mean, though, go forward?
Go forward, we've got to put pressure on this government. Brexit hasn't happened yet. We've got to make sure it does happen.
69% voted for Brexit, and yet the Labour MPs were peddling the Remain vote. So, I mean, they've not listened to what the Doncaster people have told them, what they want.
So you think that's the gap now for UKIP?
To go through for the working class, yes.
Here's a fact. Nigel Farage resigned, the referendum's over, we've got Brexit, yet our membership's gone up in Doncaster.
Yes,
does that tell you something?
Yes.
It was in Doncaster 2 years ago that Nigel Farage promised to park UKIP's tanks on Labour's lawn. He has made it the second biggest force across much of the north of England. But now UKIP members have got to trust a new leader to redefine what it is the party's fighting for.
For weeks, the candidates have been holding hustings.
There's only one game now for UKIP, Westminster.
Let's change British politics and rescue our country.
But they finished tonight with little sense of any policies. The man who first founded UKIP in the early 90s says it's time the party dissolved.
The real problem is, what do they stand for? And we don't know. And none of the candidates are known. None of their policy agendas are known. Is UKIP a right-wing party, a left-wing party, a centre party? We've got to ask ourselves these questions, but I simply don't know.
260 then, please.
When the next leader takes over in September, they may find a new selling point.
Almost for a pound mushroom!
But UKIP wouldn't be the first party to lose its position in the marketplace. Paul Brand, News at 10, Doncaster.
Nigel Farage, of course, continues to be a talking point here, but a test of the long-term impact of his politics is what happens to UKIP now he's going. The party has to carry the torch he has lit into a future without him. The leadership election is well underway. I would guess most people would struggle to pick any of the candidates out in an identification parade. The better-known ones, Susan Evans, Paul Nuttall and Stephen Wolfe, are not actually on the ballot paper. We'll come back and talk to Douglas about the future of the party in a few minutes, but first, the filmmaker Nick Blakemore has gone behind the scenes trying to get to know the candidates who are running and where they'll take the party.
Strangers in the night, exchanging glances.
It's a bit like a wedding, isn't it?
Yeah. Some of these events have been very, very well attended. They've had maybe 100 or 150.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's not too bad, is it?
Good to see you, Bill. How are you doing? All right?
Right.
Good.
Better journey today.
Yes.
Beautiful location as well.
It is a really nice location, really nice. And like I say, the lectern looks fantastic, and the setup looks really good. Really
I'm
good.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's a shame Diane's not here.
Well, why isn't Diane coming? What's going on?
As I understand it, Diane's campaign team have decided that she's better distancing herself from us and doing her own thing. I think it's quite an insult to the membership and totally anti-democratic personally.
I think Diane is disrespecting the members by not coming to these events. You know, I like Diane, I get on very well with Diane, I think she's a great person, but I think it would be better if she was here.
Well, the message tonight is that I'm there with Westminster behind me and Parliament behind me. The flag's in there as patriotism, which is obviously a massive part of UKIP.
What does that mean?
What patriotism and libertarianism?
Just spell it out.
Yeah, well, first of all, you shouldn't be ashamed to say you love your country. And one of the reasons why I love our country is because it's the home of democracy, and freedom of the people means no more of the establishment telling us what to do, no big state control, allowing people the freedom to aspire to better.
Well, what I'm hoping to get out is just meeting the members, for those that haven't met me for sort of 14, 15 months. So it's just getting to know them again, getting them to understand that I really am grassroots based, but equally I'm very much a leader with management and team building experience. So I've got a lot to offer, but it's not going to be about the Lisa show, it will be about the big team involved. Core message is leadership, management, team building, and the future of UKIP is grassroots and councillors. My phone is ringing. You don't answer the phone when you've got a boy.
10 seconds left. I shall start dinging my glass furiously so that they know they are close to being out of time. I shall just take my seat and then we'll call on the first speaker.
The current Labour scheme seems to be internationalist, corporatist, anti-British, anti-monarchy, anti-armed forces and anti-Judeo-Christian. We offer the absolute opposite to that, and I think that we are absolutely tailor-made and could be a complete shoo-in for the old Labour areas, but we need to get out there and say hello. We've got to come and say hello so they're not frightened of us. They've heard through the Labour machine that we're the big bogeymen who hate them and hate everything.
Thank you, Liz. I think the big thing we need to do in this party, and it needs to be a lot better, is the 3 C's. Communication, communication, communication.
I think I'm someone who's got real life experience as well as political experience. I'm a working class lad, you know, who works in a supermarket, leads a team as a supervisor. But also I've got other experiences in my life. You know, I've ran a small wrestling promotion business.
There's a video in the public domain where you're quoted as saying, I'm better than you, cleverer than you, and what's more importantly, I've got more money than you. What was that about?
Yes, that's wrestling character interviews.
We're men of money.
We're rich.
We're rich. Which, of course, none of you understand anything about that at all.
What I would say is wrestling characters are actors. You know, you are playing a character. You know, we wouldn't get Leonardo DiCaprio and haul him over the coals about character comments that the Wolf of Wall Street's made, for example.
I don't want to tell people what they should or shouldn't wear, but if somebody wearing a crash helmet, a hoodie or a balaclava is asked to show their face, then the same should apply to someone wearing the veil.
I do worry sometimes about the tone and the way this comes across, and I think when we get into these issues, I think a lot of the time we play into our opponent's hands.
But where we must never go is singling out one part of the community, one faith, and singling them out for special attention. That is frankly wrong.
You talked in the speech about demonising people. Was it wise to have posed for photographs with 2 knitted gollywogs?
Well, look, that was way back when, and actually the whole reason for that was simply, it was part of a campaign against political correctness. What happens every time now I try to talk policy, I end up talking about dolls, and that's crazy.
People find those images grossly offensive.
Yeah, well, not everyone does. You know, I frankly, you know, if anyone's offended by an image of a doll, I'd suggest to them they need to sort of get out a bit more.
The hustings are a complete waste of time.
you know, quite frankly, they descended into what I call a bum fight, and it's just not. It's not good to watch. But anyway, look, you must let me move on.
I've got to write this.
Good stuff. Excellent.
Can I just ask you a few quick questions?
Yes.
Can you just tell me very quickly why you're not attending the main hustings event?
I've developed my own strategy, and in fact, that gentleman I was just speaking to a few minutes ago has congratulated me on that strategy.
Your leadership colleagues said to me last night that Diane, she's not a team player. How would you respond to that?
I think what you're actually voicing is more just what I've got used to now, which is the sort of insults and really quite unpleasant behaviour that's coming back from some of the other candidates. I haven't adopted that tactic. I'm trying to rise above it. I'm appealing to my members and my activists to come and hear what I've got to say, put me on the spot with questions, and if that's not actually being a team player and showing leadership, I really don't know what is.
Nick Blakemore's film. Well, in case you're wondering why we didn't hear more from Diane James about the substance of her campaign there, Newsnight wasn't allowed to film her event once it started. Well, Douglas Carswell is still with me, UKIP MP. Let's talk about your party specifically. We've done the big picture, haven't we? Are you happy with the range of candidates on the slate?
I think it would have been better if we had had some slightly taller poppies, but as we know, not all the taller poppies made it into the onto the ballot paper for various reasons, but some self-inflicted, some inflicted by others. But, you know, this is a huge opportunity. This is the possibility of, you know, running the third largest party in the country, and it's potentially a massive opportunity. Look at the state of the Labour Party in meltdown. Look at the Liberal Democrats. They're on a holiday from history, and they may not even come back. This is a huge opportunity, but if we're going to seize it, we need a leader who changes the tone quite dramatically. Right. And also has a much bigger policy repertoire.
Who is that, though? Because you haven't endorsed anyone yet.
No, I mean, I'll let you into a secret. I didn't always get on particularly well with the last leader, and I'm going to make an extra special effort to get on with the new one. So I owe it to support whoever the members.
But I think you owe it. I think you also owe it to the members to tell them who you think shouldn't have the job. Now you've outlined a kind of a description there, a job description for who you think would fit the bill. And let's be honest, Bill Etheridge, you know, the chap with the gollywogs, he wants a referendum on the death penalty, apparently described Hitler as a magnetic and forceful leader. I mean, there is no way that you, Douglas Carswell, could say he is your UKIP. I mean,
yeah.
I just not.
I think the way I would put
don't pretend.
I think the way I would put it is, and I think Bill more or less demonstrated this. If you talk about things that he's talked about, then it doesn't really matter what you say. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. And that tone needs to change. And I would say one of the reasons why we only managed to win a single seat at the last general election, one of the reasons why we hemorrhaged about a third of our supporters is precisely because we used shock and awful tactics. And they put off a lot of swing voters.
In one of your blogs, you said one of the questions that the leaders need to answer is, what is UKIP for? It's a good question. You've got the Brexit. That was what you were for. Yeah. What are you for?
We've broken the EU cartel. We've broken that groupthink at the upper echelons of Westminster and Whitehall about Europe policy. But there are cartels in the nooks and crannies of people's lives. Look at the family court system. Look at monetary policy, a particular bugbear of mine. Look at the banking system. These are cartels that need to be broken. And politics itself in this country. One of the reasons why there is this mood of anti-politics anger is because politics is basically a rigged system. We think of it as competitive. In most seats in this country, there's no real contest as to who's going to be the next Member of Parliament. People are parachuted in because they show obsequiousness to people like George Osborne or I think it was Ed Miliband when he ran it. People want a different type of politics where actually those they send to Parliament answer outward to the voters. We need things like open primary candidate selection. We need things like...
Okay, so you want political reform. And I should say I was unfair on Bill Etheridge, by the way. He described it as a magnetic and forceful speaker, not leader. So I slightly misquoted.
There are some things that aren't worth commenting on.
But look... The truth is that the party you're describing, the reformist agenda you're describing, is not actually the same as the UKIP one. I mean, it is important, is it not, for British politics to have a UKIP party, rather like the Farage UKIP party that there has been, which represents a strand of UK opinion, has given voice to a lot of people. You're in a completely different place. I mean, you're a different party. It's not UKIP.
I think the results of the last election spoke for themselves. I didn't bang on about European immigration. I made a point of saying that actually first and second generation Britons were as much a part of this country as anyone else. Ultimately, if you play people's anger back at them, you don't aggregate votes and win seats. But we desperately need a party that can break this cosy cartel.
But aren't you just getting in the way of UKIP, as UKIP members want UKIP to be?
Getting in the way by winning seats?
By banging on about the things you're banging on about, rather than banging on the things that they want to bang on about. And we can hear from the hustings. They're in a very different place to you.
I think the reason why things have gone wrong in politics is because there's not enough radical liberalism. And I think UKIP could be the vehicle for that, to break these vested interests and cartels that run politics for their convenience. UKIP can certainly seize that. If UKIP tries to become a British version of some of those angry nativist parties in continental Europe, it will rightly fail, and it would deserve to fail.
And you would have to leave, obviously, if a leader took it in that direction.
I think the UKIP Parliamentary Party would take a vote on that.
Douglas Coswell, thank you very much indeed.